In our presentation, we will go briefly through the overview of the Korean language teaching in Vietnam and the development of the Korean courses at a university where I work. And then I will present to you the result of a survey with the students at our university who are studying Korean as a foreign language to understand about the opportunities and difficulties of Korean language teaching in Vietnam. And Seonkyeong will give her presentation about the opportunities and difficulties of Korean language teaching and learning in Vietnam from the teacher's perspectives. So for those who haven't heard or known about Vietnam, I want to say that we are in the Southeast Asia region of the world, and it is about 4.5 hours a flight to Korea and about 12 hours to Australia. And you know, in our country, the government has a favorable policy to encourage the teaching and learning of Korean language. And you can see that we trained Korean language from secondary and high school as a foreign language, and up to the higher education, we trained bachelor and master programs in Korean language. And there is a very rapid development of Korean programs in Vietnam. You can see in 2016, there was 18 universities and about 3,500 students. But up to 2022, this year, you can see the number of universities have nearly tripled, and the number is 49 universities have Korean language programs, and the number of students are 18,000 students. The universities and language centers are located across Vietnam from the north to the central and to the south of Vietnam. It means that Korean language is trained all around Vietnam. However, I think the biggest difficulties, the biggest problem that we are facing is that we lacked teachers. And you see that in 2019 we have only 222 teachers of Korean language, and this year we have 429 teachers. However, half of them you know, is temporarily, or they are like foreign teacher, I mean Korean teacher from overseas, and they come to Vietnam to work temporarily. So I think with the demand of Korean language programs in Vietnam, a lot of students really are interested in studying this language, but we are lacking of high quality teachers. And now I want to say a bit about the Korean courses that we are running in our university. So my university is Hanoi Pedagogical University 2 in the north of Vietnam. So we are one of the 7 teacher training education universities in Vietnam. And in our university, we trained teachers in different fields, and one of the field is language teachers. So I want to give you a bit understanding about the programs that we run in our university. So for the students in our university who study language programs, they are mainly major into languages. So they can be either major in English language or Chinese language. So for example, if the students study language, English language as a major, they have to study a second foreign language, and they can choose to study Korean or Chinese. So Korean is introduced to our program as a second foreign language. It means that the students are not major in Korean language, but they study Korean as a second foreign language. And since I graduated from my PhD program, I came back to Vietnam, and then I have the connection with the University of Queensland, the Korean department, and then we share and discuss about the development of Korean courses that we can run in our university. And since 2018, we go through different process. We are searching for Korean language curriculum and textbook, and also teachers from Korea. And then we selected them, and up to January 2019, we developed courses that were ready to run from February 2019. And so far, we have 3 Korean as a foreign language courses for non-major students. And in our faculty, we have 4 Korean teachers. 2 of them are Korean and 2 of them are Vietnamese. And we have 350 students taking Korean as a foreign language courses. So those are the process of our development of Korean courses in our university. So we did a survey with the students who are taking Korean courses to understand more about the facts of the situation of Korean language learning in our university, and to understand about the opportunities and difficulties they have in their learning. And here are some briefly, information of the result. So, so far the Korean courses have been run for 4 years. So you can see the biggest number of the students are taking the course is the first year student. First year student is accounted for 70.5%. And we have the rank the second is the second years and the third year students. The reason why the number of students increased is because one of the reasons is because for first year student we have a larger number of students in general, and also because of I think more and more students are interested in taking Korean courses. And the reasons they stated for their choice of taking Korean instead of Chinese, because currently we offer Chinese language courses and Korean language courses as the second foreign language, but many of them chose Korean language courses for different reasons. And the biggest reason is they said that they love the language just because of they love the language. And also the reason comes from their motivation for future works, and also rank the third and the fourth is their love for the music and the food of Korea, and the fashion rank the fifth in the list. Another reason which account for a small number, but I think it's important as well, is that some of them want to settle in Korea in their future. When we ask them about the skills that they want to, they are interested in exploring more, nearly 60% of them saying that they want to learn more about speaking skills. Rank the second is a listening skill. So we can see that the interaction, the communicative skills are still as always in their list. They really want to learn Korean for the communication, for the communicative purpose. They express their interest related to different areas of Korean language and cultures. Ranked the first is K-pop. Many of them mentioned that they love K-pop, Korean K-pop, and that motivate them to study Korean. The second and the third interest they list a drama and food. So I think those are very popular and familiar to the students in Vietnam. There's one thing that I want to mention is that for the students who are taking the Korean courses in our university, they need to achieve TOEIC 2 or 3 as the standard for them to graduate from the university. We ask them about their confidence of achieving the standards. But I can see that most of them now feel not so much confident in achieving the requirements. I think the reason is that they did the first time our university will run the test. The student need to finish 3 Korean courses before they can take the test of TOEIC 2 or TOEIC 3. So that for the third year students, this year they will have to take the standard test. And I think that they haven't got preparation for the test yet. And in the program, they haven't been guided on the format of the test. So that's why they feel not very confident in achieving the requirement. We also ask them about the form of class of study that they usually attend. And you can see that it's easy to understand that a big number of students saying that they have to attend online learning. The reason is because, even we started our Korean courses in 2019, but then after that we were, we had to face with the COVID pandemic. That's why many of the courses had to be online. That's why almost of the students had to take online courses. That really a disadvantage to the students. And when we ask them about the effectiveness of offline learning, many of them saying that they prefer offline learning rather than online learning. But actually at that time we didn't have another option because all the Korean teachers that we have, they had to be in Korea and they taught online. And we have 2 Vietnamese Korean teacher. They just came back after the pandemic, and now we have some face-to-face learning, but not so much. We ask the student about the methods or the way that they used to study Korean, and many of them saying that they spend almost of their time studying Korean in class. 60% of them saying that they used dramas as functions for them to study Korean. 57% of them self-studied Korean, and the other options is they listen to music or watch Korean programs or learn by apps. So though it can be seen that there are different ways that students use to study Korean. And then we ask them about the opportunities or the advantages they have when they study Korean in our university. And many of them, 62% of them, compliment the teachers' sound pedagogy. And just a less number of the responses mentions the diverse self-study materials. So they say that the teachers and the materials that they have access to help them a lot in their Korean learning. The rank the third is a good textbook. They mentioned that 50%, nearly 50% of them mentioned the textbook are good, sufficient for them to study. And then the other advantages they mentioned is the high quality teachers and well-structured curriculum. We can see that some of the comments that teachers, the students say here as an example. For example, they say, I often watch Korean TV shows or listen to Korean music, or I watch Korean lectures on YouTube, or the lecturer is Korean, so it's easier for me to communicate. So those are some examples of what they compliment on the advantages for their Korean study. Related to the disadvantages or the difficulties they have during their study, I think it's interesting to know that they mentioned that they have they don't have learning skills. They think they need more help with the learning skills, and they mentioned the lack of learning environment. It can be understands that it's easier to understand that because of most of the teaching hours they have is online learning, and also the teacher don't come to Vietnam, so that they don't have the face-to-face interaction with the teachers. And so I think it's really truthful here. Some of them mention the difficult curriculum or our textbook as other disadvantages that they have, and they don't think that I don't think many of them think that the policy or the teachers are the difficulty. The quality of the teachers are the difficulties for them. So we can see that one student saying that the learning materials are not many and quite difficult to understand. I don't have many opportunity to study outside of the school, or I don't have a suitable study method. So they mentioned the studying strategy. They mentioned the environment of learning, and also some of them mentioned the textbook as the difficulty. So based on the preliminary results from the survey, we would like to give some suggestions for a better effective teaching and learning Korean at our university. I don't want to use it as a general suggestion for the other context, but I think for the context which have the similar characteristic, they can consider those suggestions. So for the policy here, in Vietnam now, we, as I said before, we just teach Korean from secondary school. So I think in the future, maybe the government can allow Korean language to be taught at all levels. And now the teaching hours for the programs which use Korean as a second foreign language is very low. For example, for our students, they only have 3 hours a week to study in class for Korean language. So I think in the future, if possible, the curriculum can be revised to increase the teaching hours. And also curriculum and textbook should be revised, should be developed and revised gradually to make the curriculum and the textbook more innovative and updated. For the teachers, we hope to have more policies to encourage teachers to come to work in Vietnam, and they should be trained in the proper, I mean, because some of the teachers come to work as overseas volunteer teachers, but they don't have exactly the degree in pedagogy. So I think they can have more training in pedagogy when they come to work in Vietnam. And also for the Korean teacher, they need to have more understanding about the culture and the language, so that can help them, work very effectively in our country. For the environment, I think, to be honest, at our university, because we just run the program for 3 years, and also we had COVID pandemic, so there isn't a Korean club or center established at our university yet. But I think in the future we should develop one or two to help our students. And with even the students saying that they can access to some materials online, but I still think there need to be more development of free and easy to access online materials or mobile apps for the student to choose which are appropriate to their levels, especially for the students who are very basic, who study Korean as a foreign language. And for the learners, I think they need more training on learning strategies, and and also they need to actively participate in the class. So those are some of my some of our information related to the practice of Korean language teaching and learning in Vietnam, and more specifically is in our university. I want to say thank you very much for your listening, and now I want to give the floor to Seonkyeong. She will present to you the difficulty and opportunities of Korean language teaching in Vietnam from the teacher perspectives. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for inviting me to present this. And I'd like to introduce the Korean teacher at working at the Hanoi Pedagogical University too. I invited him. Jangwon, say hello. Where is the Jangwon? Yeah.
네, 안녕하세요. Hi.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to say, yeah, he's in Korea now, because he delivered his class by using the online tool. So I interviewed 2 Korean teachers and one Vietnamese Korean teacher. So I'd like to share their interview findings from their interviews. So first question is, what are the general opportunities and difficulties to teach and learn the Korean language in Vietnam? So they mentioned the selection of textbook. So it's really hard. There are not many textbooks published in Vietnamese, and many books are not suitable to teach at the university level. So at the moment, the teacher make a PowerPoint slide for the students from the many textbooks published in Korean. And the poor internet connection is the biggest problem. So as of COVID-19, they teach the Korean language by using the online class. So internet situation in Vietnam is terrible. So there were often students who went out because the class was cut off in the middle of class. So it's hard to communicate, and the Korean teachers hard to teach at the moment. And the family culture is a Vietnamese family culture is quite interesting. The students didn't turn on the camera in the class because the many students have their younger siblings and they have to take care of them at home. So the teachers sometimes, not sometimes, many times heard the baby crying at home, and the students mentioned that there was no space for study at home. And what are the general opportunities and difficulties to learn the Korean language in Vietnam? They mentioned the shortage of teachers and teaching hours. Nhat mentioned earlier, so there are not many Korean teachers in Vietnam because of the low salaries. And the students also don't have enough time to study. At the moment, the Hanoi Pedagogical University provides the Korean course 3 hours per week, but it's not enough to study Korean language at the moment. And the teaching language difficulties. Korean teachers at other universities in Vietnam teach only in Korean because the Vietnamese is very difficult to study for Koreans. So teachers need more time to study Vietnamese culture and the languages. And the visa problem is also a big issue in the Vietnam. English teachers can usually get long-term visa, but it's hard to get a long-term visa for the Asian teachers. So at the moment, the Hanoi Pedagogical University tried to give a long-term visa for the Korean teachers, but they can just have only 3 months visas. So it's a bit hard to teach. And it's also poor internet connections. So internet connection is not good, so students cannot focus on the class. But the teacher will go back to Vietnam in August, so it's not a big problem at the time. And the suggestions, teachers should study Vietnamese language and cultures. It's easy to understand the student situation, and the teachers meeting is also a good chance to understand each other between Korean teachers and the Vietnamese Korean teachers. And the level of the students are quite various. So I think it's a general situation in Australia too. Some students are really good at Korean, and some students are not good at Korean. So it's hard to manage the class. So we needed to find out some ways to have extra class or some Korean clubs or Korean centers around the university. So it's that's all my presentation, and thank you for giving me a chance to share the current situations. Thank you.
It's okay. If you have any questions, you can type, so we can try to address them if we can.
Uh,
Hello. So, is that working now? Okay. We're going to go through via my laptop now. We just have a question in the chat. So it says, compared to what we expect in Australian universities in vocational motivation is quite high. And how is that reflected in your teaching? Do you have any special units that are satisfied to units to satisfy that motivation, the vocational motivation?
I think that it's at the moment there is no units for that special specific vocational motivation, because we just provided the 3 courses at the moment. So in the class, the teacher tried to put some contents related to this. So or specifically to how to write the email to some companies, or we will put some course to make a resume written in Korean. So we try to develop that kind of things at the moment.
Great, thank you very much.
Is it right?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, my name is Nicola from the University of Western Australia. And I'm asking also the second question. Don't want to steal the scene, but you mentioned that it would be useful that for Korean teachers that are dispatched from Korea to Vietnam to learn about Korean, to learn the Vietnam languages, Vietnamese and Vietnamese culture. Does that happen often? How is that? Because you also said that most teachers have just short-term visa, so maybe they don't plan to stay in Vietnam for long times. How do Korean teachers navigate between the need to learn Vietnamese and the fact that maybe they won't be staying in Vietnam for a long time? That was my question.
So Jangwon is studying Vietnamese from 2018. So he studied Vietnamese by using the online tools in Korea till now. So it's a really hard situation. They went to the Vietnam and they stayed 3 months and went back to the Korea and stayed in 2 or 3 months in Korea and then went back to Vietnam and back to Korea. So they come and go Korea and between Korea and the Vietnam at the moment. So we try to find the ways to stay for a long time. But they are very keen to study Vietnamese and the Vietnamese culture, and they spend quite time and the money for that things by themselves.
And I want to add a bit that, you know, at our university, we have the Department of International Relationship, and we have, you know, specific officers to support the foreign language teacher in general with the application of visas. And so I think it's just like the, you know, kind of the rules in Vietnam that the foreign language teacher doesn't have long visa, but it doesn't mean that they can't apply many times. And the procedure is supported by the department, so the teacher don't need to be worried too much. And also the policy from our university is that if the teacher come to teach for our university, they will have return tickets to their hometown every year. So like a holiday, they can go back to their country for a holiday and then come back to Vietnam to work.
Hello, my name is Seonkyeong. I'm from Australian National University. I have a question about the topic test. So it sounds like that a lot of students are interested in taking the Korean proficiency test. So do you have any statistics, like how many students take or interested in, like how many opportunities do they have? Thank you.
I want to share with you from the perspective of our country. It is required for the students, for every student who takes Korean as a foreign language courses to achieve the standard test. So for example, for non-major students who study Korean as a second foreign language in our university, all of them need to take the test. All of them need to take the test. And for Korean major language student who takes Korean language programs for their master or for their bachelor, they need to meet the requirements. For example, for the bachelor student, they need to meet the requirement of TOPIK 5. Yeah, TOPIK 5. So this is a requirement for them to graduate from the university.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation today. That was great. Could we all get a round of applause, please, for
thank you very much
for coming and sharing your experiences from Vietnam. We have two more presentations in